ongoing infrastructure development in our oil belt there, money for research and tuition for some universities like Makerere, among others. Now, these needed corrections. We needed the Parliament to correct them for us to be able to spend that money for those. We went back, convinced them, and they made those corrections. And that was in the supplementary also. The fourth and last major category is the one of meeting statutory and security-related expenditures. We have some mandatory expenditures we had to make this year, which can't wait. For example, the International Court of Justice Award for Democratic Republic of Congo, we had to pay money. It's an obligation on the state of Uganda, you must pay. Reimbursement of Bank of Uganda for the money which they lent government during COVID lockdown. BOU gave us money because we couldn't collect tax when you were locked down. So we had to pay them back this money, but also addressing security threats. And these are the typical classified budget, which is usually issued under the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs, as well as the State House. Security is not for debates. When those who are in charge of security, led by His Excellency the President, tell us they are threats for the country, those ones can't wait. Some people say, well, how can you allocate money for that before you have gotten money for school? Which, for example, a school cannot happen without without security. You can't go to school when terrorists are burning children in school. So those were the four major categories of the supplementary. Now, you will find that some of the items in the four categories, somebody would do, and I've been hearing a number of my friends debating them. Is this, does it qualify for supplementary? Was it unforeseen? Was it, couldn't it wait? I would like to interrogate them in light of the four categories I've given you, and you see whether you could succeed in suspending any. But that does not mean that we have been just putting things on supplementary. No. As I told you last year, we have started a very serious operation, stopping unjustified supplementaries. So in my office there, I managed to arrest letters asking for supplementaries worth 3.56 trillion shillings. The Internal Auditor General, recently I gave him the box of those requests for supplementary, worth 3.56 trillion shillings, which different entities in government had requested, but I kept them there. I don't even give them to my officers to look at them. Now, at the end of the financial year, I said, you calculate and we see. I am now arresting other letters which are coming in. So we are not here to just give supplementary, but those which are critical, as was anticipated by the law, please always discuss them in that context. Now, with all of this in mind, the third quarter expenditure limits have been issued to ensure fiscal discipline by all the government ministries, departments, agencies, as well as local governments, and missions abroad. We call upon all accounting officers of those categories of entities I have mentioned to ensure the following. Number one, prioritization of existing obligations before committing government to new obligations. No entity should commit government to new obligations before they have financed the existing obligations. Number two, strict provision for fixed costs, such as utilities, rent, among others, within the available funds. I don't expect any entity to write to to me or to my minister that we don't have money for utilities or for rent, for those things which we call fixed costs. You know, every year. These ones are there in the budget. We provide for them, ensure that they are having a first call on the budget. Number 3, scale down on expenditures that can be postponed, such as workshops, buying new cars, and these include cars for statutory votes. Statutory votes, parliament, judiciary, and those are statutory votes. They get their money, and by law, they prioritize what they spend that money on. That is what the Constitution tells them. Because recently I heard people also debating some cars which were paraded, being given to some people, that you see government is not serious. They say they are not going to buy cars, now they are buying cars. Those were for statutory institutions. That's how they prioritize their budget. But we are now saying, please, even statutory institutions, let us prioritize the priorities. We also do things, travel abroad and even inland, prioritize it. In other words, spend money to only the critical needs. Those which can be postponed, let us postpone them. And number 4, ensure value for money, especially with the private contractors who are partnering with the government. They should deliver projects with value for money. I now turn to the money we have released for the 3rd quarter. I will start by reminding you that the approved budget for this financial year amounted to 52.736 trillion shillings, summarized as follows. Wage, 7.289 trillion. They also got a supplementary of 54. There has been some supplementary, but I will stick first to the approved budget. So of the 7.289 trillion, by this quarter 3, we have released 5.587 trillion. That is about 76.6% of the wage for, the budget for wage has been released. Then non-wage to support entities to carry out certain activities, but also non-wage recurrent. Please, Ugandans, it is not money for consumption. Some people think it is for consumption. This is where PDM money is. This is where money given to UDB is. This is where money given to NMS, National Medical Stores, to buy medicine is. This is where you will find so much money. I will break it down for you in the future to understand, because also I hear these debates, recurrent budget versus development. Some of the monies by the chart of accounts, which we call recurrent, is not necessarily for people to consume. It's actually for development purpose. Only that the chart of accounts internationally asks us to allocate it in the recurrent category. So the recurrent budget was 11.636 trillion, and of this we have released 9.571 by the 3rd quarter, which is 82.3%. Government development budget was 6.108 trillion. We have released 4.231 trillion, about 69%. Arrears, these are the arrears to those who supply the government. We budgeted for 215 billion, but we have ended up releasing 529.79, a release of 245.5%. So we are prioritizing that area whenever we find some extra resource. The rest are borderline, below the line items concerning our debt obligation, external financing, mainly going for projects and programs. We fund from external sources and local revenue. You will get the table and you see the breakdown. From this table, therefore, the government budget minus debt, external financing, and local revenue amounted to 25.249 trillion shillings, and of this amount, 19.921 trillion has been provided to date by the third quarter. This amounts to, of this year, 6.2% of the wage budget has been provided based on the payments made in the first half of the financial year. I wish to inform all stakeholders that this Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development has received the audit report on the wage payroll, which was done by the Auditor General of Government on our request as a ministry. And going forward, this report shall be our basis of providing funds for wage as a first step in the government's implementation of the auditor's recommendations. Therefore, those who have been writing letters of wage shortfalls, we don't need them again. The Auditor General has given us now the exact figures on each and every entity, and we are going to release wage according to that report findings, as also we implement the recommendations of the Auditor General. There are a number of recommendations, as we shall inform you. Non-wage recurrent expenditure, 550.859 billion shillings has been released for operations of security institutions. That is Ministry of Defense, 403 billion shillings, police, 71.374 billion shillings, prisons, 41.427 billion shillings, ISO and ESO, Internal Security Organization and External Security Organization, a total of 34.975 billion shillings. Another 230 billion has been released for statutory votes. Parliament, 150.962 billion shillings. Electoral Commission, 9.459 billion shillings. Judiciary, 44.88 billion shillings, among others. Uganda shillings, 296.78 billion shillings has been released for pension and gratuity for Q3. And this includes the requirement for pension and gratuity for local governments. Then shillings 249.294 billion has been released for local government grants, including capitation grant of 136.5 billion to ensure timely opening of the first term of our schools. Another 117.567 billion shillings has been provided to education institutions, including Ministry of Education and Sports, 28.076 billion shillings, to cater to instructional materials, students' loan scheme, and examination bodies. Public universities, Uganda Management Institute, and the Law Development Center have been given a total of 84.537 billion shillings. UBTEB has been given 4.594 billion for supervising, conducting, and managing exams for that category of students. 90.211 billion shillings has been provided to national medical stores to meet the obligations for purchase of essential drugs and medicines as well as other supplies, while 57.955 billion shillings has been given to referral hospitals, cancer, as well as Heart Institute to ensure that we stay healthy. I now turn to development budget. A total of 336.3 billion shillings has been provided to kickstart the process of ensuring renewal of national IDs. And there, NIRA has been given 192 billion, but also the purchase of tablets for the National Population Census, the National Population and Housing Census. The UBOS has been given 144.3 billion shillings. So that they count all of us. We want to plan when we know how many we are. A total of 305 billion plus another 716 million shillings has been released to meet government's commitment on UGIFT program, which caters for schools and health centers within the local governments to be constructed, those seed schools I was talking about and health facilities, in line with our joint agreement with the World Bank. I urge all local government accounting officers to ensure that these funds are spent timely before the close of the financial year, to avoid the other issue I told you of supplementary. They must spend this money within the remaining period. 20 billion shillings has been provided to KCCA to rehabilitate, to continue with the rehabilitation of the roads within Kampala. Implementation of the parish development. Somebody may say, only 20 billion to fix the potholes and all these other bad roads. This is now the money for GOU. But as you know, and we have told you already, we have two big projects where we got money from the African Development Bank, and the KCCA is supposed to do what we call RAP. We have provided the resources so that that loan of over, I think, $300 million can do its work. That's over $1 trillion shillings. And then you have also had the recently concluded Greater Kampala Metropolitan Area program, where World Bank has lent us about over $600 million to fix the infrastructure in Greater Kampala, not only the city here, but also the surrounding local governments in Wakiso, in Mukono, and parts of Mpigi, and the Entebbe municipality. We are going to see a beehive of activities going forward, and those funds are to revamp the city. Now I turn to implementation of the PDM. I issued a circular on the PDM to all stakeholders and wish to emphasize that we adopted a phased implementation approach for the PDM. The 30th June of last year marked the end of the establishment phase for the PDM. The establishment phase was between financial years 2021-22 and 22-23. We have finished the establishment phase. Now we are in what we call a stabilization phase of PDM. It's going to run from this financial year 23-24 and up to financial year 24-25. And in this stabilization phase, we are going to do the following activities. Number one, continue to capitalize the PDM circles with additional 100 million shillings per parish every financial year. Number two, enhance provision of business development services. BDS, and extension services, including agricultural insurance, irrigation to PDM enterprise groups, and circles, so that we can have sustainability. Number 3, strengthen governance of PDM enterprise groups and circles. Number 4, ensuring complete and accurate data on PDM management information system. Number 5, ensuring effective use of digital systems to identify and effectively monitor the beneficiaries. Number 6, promoting community savings. And 7, strengthening collaboration between pillars. As you know, PDM has 7 pillars. Money is one of them, but there are other pillars. So we want to strengthen the collaboration with the other pillars so that we ensure availability of quality inputs, provision of appropriate extension services, as I have told you, as well as availing processing, storage, marketing opportunities for the funded enterprises. And since the issuance of the PDM Pillar 3 operational guidelines, Pillar 3 is the financial inclusion pillar. Since we issued the guidelines, His Excellency the President and the Cabinet have issued additional directives to guide implementation of the PDM. I want to remind the country of these guidelines. Number 1, the loan amount for each borrower should be 1 million shillings. The grace period for the loan shall be 24 months. Those are 2 years. Nobody should demand those who have received the money to pay back before 2 years. That's the grace period. And the loan shall be repaid within the subsequent 12 months after the grace period, either in installment or in lump sum. Number 3, disbursement of all funds shall be through the Wendy mobile wallet going forward, right from the Treasury to the circle. Number 4, the interest payable on the loans shall be 6% per annum. From government, it is a grant to the circle. No need to pay any cost, and you don't need to return the money to the Treasury. But from the circle to the borrower, 6% is charged, and you pay back to the circle so that it can revolve around the members. Number 5, effective utilization of all existing agro-processing facilities, such as industrial hubs, markets and storage facilities, for the implementation of the PDM should be enforced by those relevant. Number 6, district agriculture officers, district veterinary officers should sensitize the population on modern farming practices using television and radio programs. The next one is that beneficiaries must be recommended through community meetings. Nobody should write cheats to recommend beneficiaries, or that is somebody powerful in a parish is the one to recommend. It should be community meeting. The community must sit in the parish, the members and the members who are going to get that year are recommended and read out to everybody. This is intended to ensure that wrong people do not get this money. By wrong people, whom do I mean? The elites. You know, there is what we call elite capture in government programs. In those villages, there are some elites. You find the RDC benefitee, or some chairman of LOC 5 or LOC 3. No, those are elites. Shouldn't. It should be first the people whose category were targeted by this PDM, and you know them. Payment, the cabinet also directed us to pay 100,000 shillings per month to the parish chiefs. Each parish chief should receive, on top of his wage, 100,000 shillings as allowance for rent and bicycle repair. That bicycle uses to monitor the activities in the parish. And lastly, the Ministry of Local Government to ensure that PDM funds for Karenga district in Karamoja and other single planting season districts are retained on the PDM circle accounts until the next crop planting season, and that in case government releases additional funds for PDM before disbursement of existing money, each parish should receive double the installments. In other words, we shouldn't release money to people who are not going to be productive in that period. And those are the districts with the single season. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize the following. First, all accounting officers must ensure that they pay wages, salaries, pension and gratuity by 28th of every month. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been emphasizing this every year, every quarter, but still there are some people I see who are claiming they haven't received the wage. This now, with especially now the information we have from the Auditor General, the accounting officers are not going to have any excuses. You will be relieved of that responsibility. There should be display of the payrolls for salaries and monthly pension on government institution notes board every month. Those who receive pension, and please display them. And the media, hold those local governments especially accountable. Ensure that they display these beneficiaries as required by the policy. Accounting officers, number 3, must prioritize payment of service providers in time to avoid accumulation of arrears. And as I already said, if you don't have the money in our releases, please don't commit government. It should be only when you have the money that you should commit government. And when we release the money, please pay in a timely manner the service providers. Like I found recently when I interacted with the media, that sometimes these institutions which advertise with the media take 6 months, 3 months before paying. Somebody has provided the service and they have the budget. The media thought they didn't have money, so they came to me to ask me to provide the money. I gave the media the full report on how much money is in the budget for media, and we released this money. But they were not giving media money in time. And now the media had to borrow to pay URA, the tax. These are the things which I said must stop, and we are going to stop them. All government institutions should ensure prepayment of utilities, water and electricity. Please effectively supervise the implementation of government programs as well as projects. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank the press, you, the media, fraternity, and the civil society for supporting our budget transparency initiative. We want the budget to be known by every Ugandan the way I know it. That's how we provide the information. That's why I come here every quarter with all of these officers. There's nothing in the national budget of Uganda to hide from anyone. So when we provide this information, it is the civil society and the press who are helping us for people to get this information. I thank you very much, and I urge all of you to make use of our website. We have a website, www.budget.finance.go.ug. If those things disturb you these days, just put in Google National Budget Uganda. It will take you there. It will take you to the website where we post more information detailing all of these things I've talked about. You may also recall that we have a number where you can call for free, 0800 229 229. 0800 229 229. You can call there for more information on the national budget, and you will not be charged for the call. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, SSG, for your statement. We are now going to hear from our partners, but before they come in, allow me to introduce some of you members of top management who will join you as you make your presentation. We have the Director of Public Affairs, Mr. Sectoral. We also have the Director of Budget, Mr. Ishmael Makona. We also have Commissioner Wedge Helen, who is representing the Director General. Yes, somewhere. We also have Acting Commissioner Tax Policy, Mr. John Garuhanga. He's also with us here.
Where is the tax man? Oh, is he?
And we have a number of state commissioners, including
There is
just next to
the other commissioners here. The man of risk.
Yes, we have Commissioner Sowa to Samson. He must be somewhere. And we also have Commissioner Kasanga.
Yes.
Must also be somewhere.
Thank you.
Very much. We also have a number of assistant commissioners support you here. You can see State Commissioner Ali Tagore, just next to you there. State Commissioner Francis Pinabasiko is here. We have a State Commissioner Macro, Angela.
Yes.
We have some other staff commissioners, including Bob Munene, there, and Nyamwaj.
Teresa Nyamwaj.
There are quite a number of commissioners who are here.
Okay, there are so many. Those are enough. Thank you.
So it's now many take this opportunity to invite our partners, Budget Transparency Initiative, to make a statement. Thank you. Happy New Year to all.
Come on.
And also share to congratulate you on giving us detailed information. I think providing more detailed information reduces the number of questions that we would be asking. And I have a few now issues definitely to raise. Of course, just to say that yes, the economy is doing well, like you said, especially inflation, and that we are doing well in the region. Some of these things we take them for granted, but when it is above 10%, that's when you can see how disgruntled we can be. I remember you mentioning that we were looking very annoyed when it was about very angry about 10%. But I think it's quite important. It provides confidence into the economy. Chair, also I think there are two PFM reforms that we are very proud of. One of them is those that touch us, leave alone the other big ones. But the OAG has got a citizen feedback platform where we as citizens and CSOs can, in our villages, be able to track, be able to share with the Auditor General any leakage or weakness in the service delivery system, and the Auditor General can be able to get back to us and deal with it. But also the PPDA has a contract monitoring system where, again, we can go and track any contractual issue, report PPD, and then they're able actually to get back to us and we report for purposes of improving service delivery. And of course, the recently launched PPD regulations. Chair, there are a few things I just wanted you to bring to your attention. I think for me, one of them is thank you so much for providing a detailed explanation about the supplementary budgets, especially on the issue of revoting. I think this is something that we did not know about it properly, but also parliamentary actions that sometimes lead to some of these reallocations at the approval level that require you to do a supplementary budget. But, Chair, again, I think we need to ask a fundamental question as to why some of these activities are not in the budget. from the beginning that I should be planned for, because we know, for example, that NAM was approved 2 years ago, and it required a supplementary budget now. We know that Uganda Bureau of Statistics really had a plan to conduct census. Why would it then require a supplementary budget? Was it lack of planning or lack of prioritization, like you said? So we believe that if you could be a bit more stricter on these agencies, and I think one of the key areas we have mentioned is that there has been a consistent decline in the Ministry of Finance plan to strategically guide ministries on where to allocate money at first. Because when we leave agencies to allocate on their own and they forget these critical areas like counting our own people, we think that really the Royal Minister of Finance should come back and guide these ministries on what they are supposed to do. We are glad that the OAG has raised the report, not only on the wage issues that we raised last time, but also a number of issues, Chair. I think our concern right now is that some of these issues don't require Parliament to first sit and discuss them. They are the issues you can deal immediately because you have the administrative powers to do so. Issues about wage that you have talked about, issues about where the Auditor General went in a district and he could not get accountability at all, money was lost. We believe that they require immediate action by your office, and we look forward to that. On domestic areas, we are glad that actually you have performed even before more than what you had promised. But Chair, despite these warnings we give out on a quarterly basis, and with the presence of the strategy to eliminate domestic areas, the areas have continued to increase. By the Auditor General, it is calculated that they have increased by 62% in one financial year, from 4.6 trillion in 2021 to 7.55 trillion in 2022. In our calculation, Chair, going by this rate of the proposed allocation of 217 billion, it might take you like 35 years to clear all the areas, assuming that no more areas we are going to accumulate. Chair, on that note, let me say thank you so much for this, and we continue to support you in ensuring that there is budget transparency in this country.
Thank you very much, PS, and Happy New Year. I want to thank you for holding the fort, stabilizing the ship. I also, Dr. Binumisha is my name from Accord, and I want to appreciate that the economy is recovering, but the citizens still struggling to put the food on the table, because I think we need the reality and the practice. They don't match. Maybe you could help us answer those questions, because the citizens are crying. There is no money in the pocket. But I want to appreciate the work that you are doing, especially in the post-COVID era. Many economies around the world are struggling. I wanted to bring a few comments on the table, and one is the low absorption of funds. Based on Auditor General's report for the financial year 2021-22, a significant amount of funds amounting about 4.5 trillion remained unutilized. And in the following year, 2022-2023, unutilized balance was 5.8 trillion. And so what do we recommend then? There is a need to establish and address all implementation challenges that have time to time hindered accounting officers from utilizing availed funds from this office, because it affects the economic growth of this country. It's not good that we send money and money comes back and we continue as business as usual. The second issue that we want to comment on is about the debt burden. There is a report, maybe you have seen it, the debt trap for African actually economies. Most African economies have increasingly become trapped in debt, and Uganda is no exception. But under your able leadership, we think that this country must break the trap and be free. A borrower is a slave to the lender, and we must break that chain. For example, as of 30th June 2023, the Auditor General's report shows that the total public debt had shot from 4.6 trillion in 2019 to 97.5 trillion in 2023, which is about 111.7 increase in just a period of 5 years. The same report shows that only last year we had an increase of 9.2 trillion, equivalent to 10.74%, compared to the total debt stock of 86.8 trillion in 2022. This is a sharp increase in the debt stock, and this reduces available resources for funding development projects. So I would want to advise that there's a need to reduce appetite on borrowing so that we can come out of this debt. Another point, PSST and colleagues here at the ministry, of course, is corruption. The level of corruption in this country. Corruption, as we have always known, cannot be eradicated, but can be reduced, can be contained, because if it's not controlled, it can even bring states to collapse. So, so despite the need for more resources to finance service delivery, the government continues to lose a lot of resources through corruption. This is happening even when we have these state institutions. And PSST would be happy to hear how you are strengthening the anti-corruption agencies to really to fight corruption. According to the IGG report, by annual performance report to Parliament, January to June 2023, they completed corruption cases amounting to about 507 billion across only 8 MDAs that were investigated. These corruption tendencies have continued to manifest both at national and subnational levels, and therefore corruption continues to stifle our development possibilities and potentials. So there is a need to strengthen district councils' oversight role to monitor and facilitate implementation of local government public accounts committees and audit recommendations at all levels. You realize that most of the audit recommendations are never actually implemented at the local government level because, of course, the public accounts committees are also weak. Most of them actually understaffed. We've gone around this country inducting the councils with the Ministry of Local Government. Most of them are not working, they are not staffed, they don't know what to do because actually they were not inducted. So they are there. So I think there's a need to strengthen those anti-corruption committees at the local government level where most of our money is going. My colleague has already talked about the supplementary budget. I don't want to talk about that, but there is also the issue of retention of local government funds by MDS, and I want to thank you, PSST. I remember when you came in immediately, made that commitment and wrote even a letter. But maybe you may need to update us whether it's working, because there may have been some reversal. Because a lot of money still is retained at the center that is earmarked and illegally contravening the Constitution and all other laws. Money remains at the center. The MDS jetting the local governments, put up a health center, put up a school, and come back, and local governments refuse to take them on. So they are decaying institutions down there. I think a study also was done by the Operation Wealth Creation and the Local Government Finance Commission, which shows so many decaying institutions, but that's taxpayers' money. So you could brief us what measures you are taking to make sure that that money is going. Finally, PSST is the issue of local government financing. I mean, that's part of local government financing. But recently we saw on television a chairman crying. And I think that's not good for the nation. He was crying, literally crying because of underfinancing. What do we do? And actually we thought it was Katemba, but then there were also MPs and that, but you could find out. But then the minister was there and he came on to, and I have also had the minister himself, the permanent secretary for local government, that they maybe they look for money elsewhere, but money we know is here. Yeah, but the point is that I think decentralization is one of those novel ideas and projects that this country, this government has implemented, that actually people benchmark us. So denying or stifling financing for local governments undermines decentralization, reverses our progress in decentralization. So for me, PSST would want to see what plans do you have to increase financing of local government so that service delivery is delivered. And my final point on the parish development model, I also is the failure to bring in the whole issue of climate adaptation and resiliency, because PPDA, or rather parish development model is going to succeed, is based on land, and of course climate change is real. The weather patterns have changed. People cannot harvest. I've lost myself. I've lost produce because of drought, prolonged drought. So yeah, I think it would be imperative that actually one of the component is strengthened on climate change, adaptation, and resilience. And Denmark gave us $95 million. It was announced the other day, and I was there, the minister. So it would be, if there is a way, and the good thing is that the parish development model remains like an experiment. So you can try, if this fails, we try another one. I think we need to factor that in, but because it's a good idea, but the farmers are going to lose their produce if we don't focus on climate change and adaptation. But otherwise, thank you very much for this initiative and for the work at the ministry.
Thank you very much, partners. I think now places to can make a response to the remarks.
The arsenal.
Maybe I start with this announcement. At this ministry, we communicate effectively. So we have here a magazine, this one, which we write quarterly. So you can, before you leave, you take a copy to get more information on what we do. It is here. Nobody should charge you. It is for free. Okay. Now, I think we are really progressing very well as far as getting minds meeting is concerned with our colleagues, the civil society and the partners. When I see Julius giving me only 2 questions, there used to be 3 pages of questions. Now there are 2. The issues are getting addressed. I get now. Why did we include things like a census, NAM, what in a supplementary, yet we knew them? Is it poor planning or what? Very good question, really. Logical question. I want to inform you that actually some of these needs were known at the time the budget was prepared. But we did not have fiscal space for them, to cater for them, given their big ticket requirements. You have heard the type of money we were spending on them. And in Uganda, and that's why Ugandans, you need really to appreciate the way we run the budget here. In Uganda, we spend money we have. If we don't have money, we don't spend it. And now, how do we get money as government? Two major sources, revenue or debt. Now, when revenue has been exhausted, that's when we program for debt. The level of debt, the level of borrowing you're going to make determines the fiscal space which we have, which we call the fiscal deficit. We sit down, we have here very good gatekeepers of those numbers. Once they tell me, ST, there is no space for you to provide for this, I go home. But now later, because of the nature of these expenditures, as I've told you, they are not easy to postpone. They were able to squeeze some of them in the fiscal space available. As some projects exit, some components of them, then fiscal space is generated. And then they squeeze some of them. There are others which, many, which were left out. I've told you the magnitude of requests people had. So it's not that the officers you see are bad planners. They didn't know that there will be NAM, or that we shall count Ugandans, or register them. We all knew, but we didn't have fiscal space. Actually, to borrow that money, because you remember, when we presented also a borrowing request, so that we can finance them. It is a trade-off that we have to make. But that can only be done when we are sure that that borrowing will not hurt the economy. And that's the job that we do here. And you know, some people, especially those who have not gone to economics classes, when you talk of these things, fiscal space, fiscal deficit, what's that? At least we know aircrafts. When you are boarding an airplane, there are sometimes they tell you, we can't take your luggage, extra luggage. You have the money, you want to pay, to take your pineapples to Europe, they tell you, much as we need money, we shall not take your pineapples. It's not because that airline doesn't want to make money, but the float it has, the space it has in terms of weight it can carry is used up. If they put that luggage on the plane, it might drop in one of the oceans because of overweight. So also the economies are like this aircraft. It runs out of space, runs out of float to carry so many expenditures at a time. But then, as they are telling you that, no, we can't carry your luggage, later they may realize one of the passengers who was supposed to board a plane with a heavier luggage has not appeared. Then they call you and they say, oh, are you still around? Yeah, bring the luggage and we put it on. Don't say these airlines don't plan. Now they disturbed me, I had reached Kajansi. Now the floaters reappeared. That's how also the economy runs. So when we are doing these things, they are according to the capacity of officers to analyze them and see that we can now manage this, we can't manage it. And please give us that benefit of doubt than the many experts I see out there. On domestic areas, yes, the Auditor General gave a list of these areas, and also we know they have been growing over time for a number of reasons. We need to disaggregate also these areas so that our people can understand them. When we say domestic areas, some people think, this is money now owed to these local people. Look at all these trillions. No, not really. There are several other things involved, like court awards, like some of these subscriptions to international organizations, and so on and so forth. There are many categories. I will ask you, my people of the internal audit, to disaggregate such that later when I'm communicating, I can give you now figures and facts on what are these areas and owed to who, so that you are able to really appreciate. But as far as the small people who are supplying government, and we are really trying our best to pay them. These are the monies I was reading here, and we shall continue to do that. Now, Dr. Beno Mugisha, citizens are crying there is no money, yet the economy is growing. You see, an economy is like a human body. A human body. A small person and an obese one, they both are human beings. But you will find that when somebody is healthy, and they say you are healthy, sometimes they look at the other bigger one and they think is the one who's better off, or the smaller one. We need to realize that these macroeconomic indicators, we tell you, they are not just for purposes of convincing elites. They are the real indicators of the health of the economy. And usually the Ugandans, all of us who are always claiming that, no, the economy, we are not feeling it the way you are telling us. Actually, you feel it when it goes bad. Huh? When inflation increased, you remember. Even the cameramen before me, they were looking differently. The question is they were bringing in. Every Ugandan was really very angry. Nobody wanted even to listen to us. You remember the type of hostility we were having. That's when the economy is doing badly. When inflation is rising, when the economy is not growing, when the shilling is depreciating, when the banks are not lending money, and so on and so forth. Those macroeconomic indicators, they have implication on us. So when they get better, we take them for granted. We start to say, don't tell us about GDP. Are we going to eat GDP? Yes, actually you eat GDP. I usually tell people, I was a teacher, I remember, of economics. I tell my students, yes, you eat GDP. If you want to know that you eat GDP, let it not change. That's why in countries with higher GDP, people are relatively better off than in countries with lower GDP or GDP growth. So these indicators, Arthur, which we usually tell people of Uganda, they are not for just mentioning to fill space. There are some jurisdictions where these indicators are not the same. Go and compare notes and see. There are countries, for example, now without dollars. You want a dollar, you first go to the central bank and explain where you are taking it. And they don't even allow you. And some of them are not very far from us. There are countries right now where inflation is in double digits. And in those countries, people can't afford food. People can't afford anything. There are countries where GDP is negative, GDP growth. And there are certain things which happen. So slowly, these figures will translate now into reality. And every Ugandan will feel it. The low absorption of funds, of course, a number of reasons where they don't absorb money well. Poor planning, somebody budgets before he has put in place all of that is needed to spend money. You know, government money, It's not very easy to spend. Sometimes I see people running around lobbying, give us more money. You give it to them, but they fail to spend it. Because to spend government money, it's a process. So those who are not planning well, we are now getting them out of the way. For example, now you can't get a project approved and get a budget code before it has done the public investment management process, before it is studied by our technical people to ensure that everything is in place. There are very critical projects here, which we have said, no, let's first start, because even if we give you the money, you will not be able to implement. We have also procurement issues, which now we are addressing with our emphasis on e-procurement. We have revised also the guidelines and regulations. Recently we launched them to make procurement easier so that people can procure quickly and implement. We have this problem of whistleblowers. People who don't have information, but because they are being used by others to fight procurements, they go and you know, in Uganda we listen to whistleblowers. They have also been stopping projects and making it you know, difficult for accounting officer. I'm not saying that people shouldn't highlight issues of corruption and so on where they are, but please have genuine information and provide it in a timely manner, and those who are supposed to take a decision should take them. These are things of right of way. You know, in Uganda, land belongs to the people. Sometimes the people say, I don't want my land. I don't want your project to pass my land. And then we have to undergo a lot of haggling. Sometimes those delay implementation. But most of them, we are now handling them at different levels. The Attorney General has been working on some of those issues, and soon we shall be able to address them. So some of the issues which lead to low absorption, they are beyond the control of accounting officers. But those which are within their ambit, which they can manage, there we are holding them accountable. On the debt issue, debt, ladies and gentlemen, debt sustainability is about two things. It's about solvency and liquidity. Debt is not about those figures you quote. It's mainly solvency. Are we able to get money, revenue, to pay current and future debt? Are we able? That's the first fundamental. We look at that, solvency. Is revenue there to pay? Then liquidity is about the cash. Do we have the cash to meet those maturing obligations? Now, those two lines, we strictly follow them up, monitor them in Uganda. And once again, I want to assure you that our debt is sustainable on those two fronts. Then we have some key indicators also of sustainability of debt, which I would like every Ugandan to understand. For debt to be sustainable, the real GDP must grow, because it is the GDP which generates the money for you to be able to pay, but also it is the GDP which is the denominator when we are calculating the debt GDP ratios. So it must grow. Is Uganda's GDP growing? Yes, I told you. Secondly, inflation rate must remain stable. Is inflation of Uganda stable and low? Yes. Number 3 is the low and stable yields on treasury bills. Government should borrow money in such a way that the interest charged on those government paper remains stable. Number 4, stable exchange rate. And number 5, growing receipts from exports, from tourism, from remittance, so that we can earn the dollars to pay. Now, for us, this is where we put more emphasis. But then, after that, we also ask, what are we borrowing for? These are the questions I would want us to start interrogating than the numbers we sometimes jump on. What are we borrowing for? I committed to Parliament recently, we are going to issue a paper, to write a paper which gives you all of the data for the last 10 years, every shilling which Uganda borrowed, where has it been spent? And where it has been spent, where data permits, what is the return on investment? Because sometimes we discuss debt in a virtue of information. You find somebody is holding a phone and is tweeting. And that tweeting alone, the internet, which powers it, is part of the debt. Because we had to do broadband to ensure that you can tweet. Or somebody is, where is all the money they have borrowed? It is that internet. The roads which we drive on. The electricity which charges the phone when it runs out of power. You remember in around 2006, 7, and on there up to around 20. You remember we couldn't hold a conversation like this before power goes. They say power has gone. Why is power not going anymore? Because we borrowed some money and built dams. Now we have more electricity. That's where your debt is. And because of now this economy we are generating, we are able to provide for solvency and for liquidity. Having said that, I've told you, in our fiscal consolidation agenda, managing debt to ensure that we borrow for only critical things is one of the main objectives. So we are fully aware and we are attending to all of this. I don't want to go into debates between accountants and economists on how debt is looked at. Those will be for another day. But I wanted to put that in perspective. On corruption, we have spoken about corruption again and again. Corruption, as I told you last time, and I'm repeating, is not about talking about things, it's about action. I would like to invite you really to watch the various actions which are going to be unfolding in the war against corruption, how we are automating and ensuring that we get those who have been finding it easy to get government money. Their lives are going to be a little bit more difficult. And then the various other actions. On retainment of local government funds by MDAs, yes, we committed that we shall be working on them. And this coming financial year, we committed that we shall start gradually to implement the issue of ensuring that money meant for local governments goes to them. There is no business, for example, a central government entity retaining some money meant for a small thing. That's why, for example, there has been this debate of this 1 billion shillings for districts. You know, some were saying, no, this money should be given to a middleman. As if local governments don't know how to receive money and how to plan and spend it. The money is meant for districts. We want to send it direct from the treasury to the district, and that district is held accountable. But then there's some middleman who wants to sit down and first, I don't know, do what with the money. These are the things I don't want anymore. Middlemen of money in government. Money should move direct from the treasury to those who are supposed to spend it and they account. Why? Because For some of us who usually use economics to inform decision making, money, when it passes through certain people, some economists have already done research which points to what we call a leaky bucket. There's what we call, go and Google leaky bucket model. You will see that money that passes through others usually doesn't reach in full. Even if they are well-intentioned, there either will be some administrative costs or some money will just leak through the bucket. So I don't want to see really as the secretary to the treasury, people who are clinging on money which is not theirs. Let the money go direct to those who are supposed to spend it, they spend and account. Where they fail to account, they are held accountable. And we shall continue to implement that. Now, on local government financing, that's why my director budget was giving me money. This has been growing very well. In 2019-20, local governments got 3.685 trillion. This year, they have got 5.18 trillion. So the financing is growing. Why is the chairman crying? Perhaps you'll find that the pie, also we need to know that we are working on growing the pie first. Before we go so much into distribution of the smaller pie, let's all of us put more effort on growing the pie. Those local governments should concentrate more on how to really collect revenue in their areas of jurisdiction, because also revenue collection there, the non-tax revenue and the local revenue is poor. Let us put emphasis there. We are supporting them with URA to ensure that we collect more money. You know, Uganda, once we have more revenue, at least 18% of GDP, 20%, you will see. Most of these debates we are having will not be there. Why we are debating a lot? Because the pie is too small and those to share so many. But as I've told you, the trend shows that the money has been growing, and we shall improve more. On the climate financing, we are fully addressing this, as you know. We have set up a unit here. We have finalized the frameworks, putting them in place, fiscal frameworks and so on, working with our partners across the world. Next thing is the money to come in to finance mainly those clean investments. And we are putting more effort in that direction. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. We have a comment from additional comment, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, PSS team and the senior management of the ministry. I'm Dr. Anthony Mugere. I'm supported by USAID and MSH for including our call to action for the MDAs and districts to plan and budget for health commodities. The last two financial years have really been supportive, and the interministerial task force has always observed this in our meetings. The second area is increased government funding for health commodities. I've been noting here when you referred to what you do with the nanny wage, you mentioned the national medical stores, vote 116, and we notice how we've been progressing from last financial year to this financial year when we hit 640 billion, and even today there is more money for NMS and the others. Which brings me to the call to action regarding the implementation of the 10-year roadmap. Two issues. One, you remember in our earlier interaction at your office, we brought you the document reminding you of the government's commitment through the Minister of Finance for the incremental funding to commodities. According to the quantification report, which was launched by the Minister of Health, we require 1.8 trillion to bridge the gap as we aim for the 2030 deadline. And of course, we know that we can't raise that money as EOU. So our appeal is that you continue with the incremental funding. We are looking forward to what will come in vote 116 and even the other cancer institutes and all that. So if we get a minimum of 100 billion, we will be fine. And lastly, our second call to action is that each time you come face to face with your colleague from the Ministry of Health or any other senior management officials from the Ministry of Health, we implore you to remind them to prioritize health commodities, because that's our campaign. We know the Ministry of Health budget is big and there are other priorities, but we emphasize that the priority should be health commodities.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
A few questions of the media and we conclude.
Yes, SST, I realize your time is constrained. I request that maybe you answer 5 questions, Uganda, and 5 questions. My colleagues have the microphones. Please put up your hands. Mention your name and media house.
My name is Fred Kajubi.
Who?
Fred Kajubi. My first issue is on the short revenue. We talked of 800 billion plus, which has been lost, especially in customs. But if you take on import substitution and export promotion, isn't it directed at this customs revenue will fall down? And the 2 is about the money which you appropriated to coffee, the value chain. It was appropriated through the gas price budget, which you cannot scrutinize. But you have had people quarreling over this money. And the other issue, we are seeing that these potholes of Kampala are now eating money. They are becoming too big that they are eating money. Last time we had SFC said it can finish the entire thing with 2 billion. And we saw they came to save us. Now we are hearing we are appropriating another money to the potholes. The other day we are appropriating money. What to understand is the issue is potholes. Where is this money going? And we are not seeing work on the ground. Finally, you tell us about the LCs. Last time we appropriated the money and we went to excite the public and has been released for LC ones. The last time we heard that it was also eaten by the potholes. Want to understand really what about this money, the LC ones?
Thank you very much. Hello. Thank you.
My name is Hakim Mwangam. A couple of questions right here. Usually, the country's projects are funded by loans that are submitted to the Development Committee for approval, and after that it is sent to Cabinet for approval, then later sent to the National Planning Authorities and NPA and Parliament for approval. What are the likely implications of such borrowing to our economy? 2, what does the country risk under this sort of arrangement? 3.
The first question is...
Okay,
Don't worry.
the involvement of NPA, some people are really afraid that NPA is being rendered redundant in the plan, in the process. So, under that sort of arrangement where the NPA has to just consult with you, then go to Parliament, what does the country lose in terms of such borrowing? And what are the implications of such an approach to management of projects? 3, full disclosure, of course with abundance of caution, the disaggregated data when it comes to domestic areas. Full disclosure. 4, what do you think is a sustainable approach to management of those domestic areas? What are we doing for those permanent secretaries that are delaying the payment to the service providers? The last one is maybe a status update. What is the latest on the payment to the former workers of the coffee marketing board? I think that's quite a mouthful.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is John of the New Vision. Thank the PS for answering the question on this side. Thank you. The first question is that the Auditor General raises concerns about the debt rising faster than the GDP. So what do you comment about that? The President says that he wants to see the economy. Auditor General says the debt is rising faster than the GDP. And the President says in 10 years he wants to see the economy growing faster. Can you comment on it? Now, the other issues about when you say there's an increase in the level of economic activity, does it translate into improvement in employment, poverty indicators, income per capita? Is it possible that maybe sometime to give us some data on how employment is rising as the economy improves? The other question is about, this was a light issue about the fiscal space that we are using very crowded vehicles to get into towns, and we are all getting there safely, not necessarily planes. So the question is that, please calculate in this fiscal space. Maybe there's somewhere. Can we all fit in that plane and reach? The other thing is about the World Bank fees, the loans. You say that the World Bank is giving some funding for the KCA roads, but does that freeze? Can you comment on that? Then finally, I appreciate that the budget is being made for people to understand. And you have really done better. That could you try to do, King Commission says that technical people should try to make the ordinary people understand this. People just know the figures, 4 trillion, but they don't understand it. Maybe with time, can we try to make this information more understandable to people? Thank you very much.
The last question for English.
Yes.
We have one this side. Martin.
Okay. My name is Dennis Kasule from the Uganda Radio Network. Mine is a simple one about the teachers. We are going back to school now. These people have again started that they want an increment of their salary. What could be the lasting solution to this problem? Something else is about the media center. The other time the minister was in parliament saying that media center is not funded at all. How can this be solved as well?
The last question from Martin.
My name is Fred Mojambo. I work for Bloomberg. Our company has been toying with an idea of issuing a Eurobond. How far have you moved in this plan? And you mentioned about payment of reparations score. How much have you so far paid? And when do you hope to repay the entire reparation? And follow up on the World Bank freeze of loans to Uganda. At what level are the negotiations between you and the lender? Then lastly, about the budget, a revenue shortfall. How much do you foresee for the entire financial year? Thank you.
Okay, Martin, your chance to the last one.
Thank you. I'm really given up on asking questions because there were so many questions that many media probably reminded from the newsroom. Let me just ask anyway. So maybe the amount of the interest that the government is paying on public debt, how much is it, and then what's the exact figure for what? For our public debt. I saw it coming. Those are the questions that I've seen. But I would have asked other things, but there are so many crowded questions there that we don't make it an answer.
Okay. Yes, maybe you feel that you answered this question first.
Okay. These are very many questions, like a Martini observed rightly so. From Bukede, Fred, the shortfall in revenue is saying, could import substitution be playing a part? Because some of the things which we used to import, now we are producing them here in Uganda. Since our import substitution strategy has been relatively successful and ongoing. Yes, partly you are right. We shall disaggregate the numbers, but I was giving you the key contributory factors. And that shortfall in imports was mainly on account of those supply challenges which have been affecting many other jurisdictions, not only in Uganda where certain imports have been reducing, like fuel. There have been disruptions globally recently, but also within the region, and they have been affecting us. But we shall continue to study. I don't know, URA was supposed to issue a clear report, because usually I don't want to be the one they bring and we cross-check, and I allow them to issue. I will ask them to ensure that they explain all of the quarterly performances. But as I told you, it's mainly the import duty, the customs duties, and the VAT, related VAT, which caused that shortfall. On the coffee money, yes, government appropriated $10 million this financial year. $10 million, please. That's the figure. And it goes to a coffee consortium through the Ministry of Science and Technology, Science, Technology and Innovation. Now, Fred is saying the people are already fighting over this money in the consortium. His Excellency the President said that Ugandans who are willing and able to add value to coffee so that we can export value-added coffee, roasted coffee, grounded coffee, and so on, should be supported. And we have supported them with that initial funding. So when I hear the fights, I'm also hearing them. We shall find out exactly these fights about what. Could it be failure to share in a way they were supposed to share it to do this work? The results, me, I told you, my accountability is with the results. I don't want to hear to rumors and how these ones, as long as there is value added to the coffee and the coffee exports have increased. That will be the bottom line. The potholes in Kampala, as I've told you, we are committed as government to addressing them. Now you are saying more money is being spent on these potholes. The potholes also were many. And we are fixing them. We want Kampala to revamp all of this infrastructure. We are not going to be, this is just a stopgap measure. I've told you most of these roads, I've told you again and again, are going to be redone. And you are seeing a number of roads are being worked on. You are saying, but it's taking too long, they are not fixing them. You know, in Uganda, we are very quick at criticizing processes. We want things to be done in 1 week. To fix a road here, it's not a tea party. You have to transfer utilities, because there are lines down there which are carrying internet, which are carrying this and that. They have to transfer them. So you'll find a certain caterpillar rotating around the place, moving, and you're like, these people, what are they doing? I passed here last week, they were, the caterpillar was moving around. It is still moving. There is a detail to that. That is number one. So workmanship could be an issue which has to be handled by the relevant authority, that is KCCA, but I want to tell you that the funding, we shall try our level best to provide it to revamp the infrastructure in the city, and that is our main mandate. LOC1 elections, there is no money for them. That's it. There is no money for LOC1 elections now. They will be done in the future. I think the Minister of Local Government informed you. There is no money for them. Which money do you have? There is no money. No, there is no money. Parliament has never appropriated money for this purpose. Have you ever had an appropriation? There is no money for LCs. There was an idea of looking for money, but as I've told you, fiscal space. For me, I will reprioritize and see what are the key things which should be done first, and then second. Let's first count all Ugandans to know actually how many Ugandans non-LC, so that they can carry out also the election. So census money was first, than now bringing people from another LC to line up in the back of another. Let us do things systematically. So there's no money for now for those LCs. We are doing first the first things first. Wampamba. That one is my student. Wampamba. NPA's role in the approval process of loans is like all of those other steps. The number of key institutions and individuals who approve our borrowing. That's why you see Uganda is has a robust system for managing debt. NPA is one of them. But now there was, yes, I know why you're asking, there was a challenge where sometimes the NPA could come in at a time when Cabinet had already approved. The loan is going to Parliament, and now they are saying there is a letter of NPA. Their Cabinet has decided. So we are streamlining it to ensure that sequentially NPA comes in for technical analysis, because they also help to provide an independent analysis. And personally, before I write these letters for approvals, I usually ask NPA to look at some of these projects. There is one project, for example, which also I wanted to inform you media, because I saw it in the debates, of lighting Kampala city, where some French development agency was lending us some money to light the city. But upon scrutiny by NPA, we found that we are going to do fewer lights for more money within just the city. So I said, no, go back and recast this. Then it took time and the loan period expired. We are now redoing it. That's the value NPA adds in giving technical analysis. So we shall sequentially put them in the right place. Before the loan goes to Cabinet, it should have scrutinized that project. Domestic areas, full disclosure. This, by the way, we disclose them. I don't know why people keep... You see, public information in Uganda is not public. I don't know where we should put it. Parliament, number one, receives this information regularly. And Parliament is the place of the people. It receives it. Now I think I should call media more and more often to read out some of these things. Only that I didn't want to bog you down with a lot of unnecessary things. But on the website, this information is there, and I will ask my officers to ensure that you can easily be guided on how to access it. They are there. So when you say full disclosure, they are there. Which category of creditors do we have? Accounting officers that delay payment, these ones, we are working on them. Sometimes we don't announce, but we remove them and we get other accounting officers in that place. You only choose to run around with some of them and you leave others, but we do our work. quietly. So those who are not paying people on time, definitely, they have a contract with the Secretary to Treasury. Each of them signs it, and failure to do it, they forfeit that role. Former workers of marketing board, there are quite a number of people who demand money, and we've been trying our level best to pay them. I don't know why you chose out former workers of marketing board, but there must be some areas which need to be addressed, because I remember I met them, they were fighting. We have been paying their claim through the lawyers, and there are other middlemen. Again, point of middlemen I've been talking about. But they came, I remember one time I chaired a meeting where the workers told me, that person, don't give them our money again. He has never given us any. And we've been trying to look at how best we could resolve those wrangles. So we shall pay them once the wrangles are resolved on how to receive the money. You see, the problem is actually how to get the money, not the money itself. But they have been quarreling over this money. The same, I want to inform you and inform the people of ranches. We committed as government, we are going to pay those who who lost their ranches to government many years ago. I met them here, and I committed that we are going as government to address that injustice. We have finalized most of the processes. We are going to pay them. We are going to pay them starting with the first installment that we agreed. All of those who have been verified by the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, in close consultations with the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs and my ministry. We have them. They shouldn't be lobbying anyone. You know, I hear some people go and they cheat them that if you give me some money, I will put you on the list to be paid. No, there is no need. All of those who are due for payment, whether they are in court or out of court, for as long as they are verified and they have evidence of ownership, they are going to be paid. We are going to pay pro rata. Depending on the amount you owe, we pay you the 30% which is available, and then we pay another 33 or something like that, and we finish in 3 installments. Then John, debt rising faster than GDP. These are matters of, by the way, economic analysis and management. I said I don't want to go into debates between accountants and economists. From the university where I came from, we used it in the graduate school to know that there are unsettled debates on how we handle certain things. The economists look at things quite differently from lawyers, from accountants, from journalists, from medical people. Recently, I deliberately said, I told Ugandans, please, let's all of us start to think like economists. We shall build a more robust economy. Because economists tend to be more using general equilibrium models to analyze things. You don't just stick to what you are seeing in partial equilibrium, because sometimes somebody may say the problems of Uganda will be solved if we build good health facilities. But you know, health facilities cannot work without good roads, cannot work without security, cannot work without water, cannot work without good education, cannot work without so many other things. So economists use general equilibrium on how do we balance all of those aspects. Now, the same with the debt analysis. This is something which I don't want to go through now. I told you we are going to write a paper to analyze to you how the debt situation is. First of all, how much money have we borrowed? And we are paying. Borrowed from who? And at what price? Spent where? And what are the return on investment? When is it going to be paid? And how? So that we have full information. And when we are debating some of these things, we are going to issue a paper, and the vision will be part of the recipients. Does growth translate into jobs or employment? Yes. And we have started to give these reports. I would request you to go and, as journalists, just review. I think some of you didn't listen to His Excellency the President in the speech that he read on the 25th of this month, ahead of the Liberation Day. He gave a full account, a comprehensive account of where is this growth and how has it translated into jobs and other things. How many jobs have been created by each and every key area we have spent on. It is there. We gave him that full information, and it is there. I don't want to repeat it here. Fiscal space, you know, John is saying, here we don't use planes, we use taxis. So he's saying, why are you bothered with the float, with the space, with the weight? Just put all of us in the taxi and we move, we shall reach. And John is not lying. That's how in Uganda we do things. Sometimes there, out there, but you see what happens, the results. When you overload the taxi, what happens? You see the accidents on the roads there, people breaking their legs, dying in those taxis which are not well managed and regulated. The economy of Uganda, John, is not like a taxi, it's like an airplane. With the airplane, there are certain strict rules which govern it. That's why when you come, even if you are in the airport, when they have closed the system, allowing you to check in, they don't carry you. The system has closed. They can't say, this is a powerful person. I know some of our colleagues in the government who go to the airport late and looked up there. So ensure that, please, we run the economy like an aircraft. Strict rules, and those rules are the ones which are going to allow us to manage the economy in a more stable manner. Communicating in language people understand. This is a very good message to my officers. Don't tell people rocket science. Break down these issues for them to understand them in those official documents and others. Because sometimes we write for ourselves, I think. We need to write for the average person so that they can understand. Even GDP, this GDP, what is it? That's why you saw I was what day here, I belabored to explain what is the business tendency index. I would just give you business tendency index and I move on. But what's that? Is it rocket science? So we shall improve on the language. Kasule, teachers who want salary enhancement, please tell them there is no salary enhancement because there is no money for such things at this point in time. The money we have now is actually to make us live within the means that we have now. Okay? Because if we are to give them any salary enhancement, means borrowing, and we don't think it is wise to borrow money to pay salary. We should all first work to grow the economy, and once the economy is grown, then we can be able to get more money. And this is the same to other categories of people. You know, I saw a number of agitations. Please, as far as where we sit is concerned, there are no resources for such. Media center's funding, media center gets a subvention from the Ministry of ICT. We have been having a back and forth analysis of media center's budget. We are going to sort it out. We are going to say small matter which doesn't require national attention. We are going to sort it out, and they get money. Fred or Jumbo, Bloomberg. Issuing Eurobonds, you said we have plans. There are no plans, Fred. Uganda has absolutely no plans for Eurobonds. We shall not issue those papers called Eurobonds, because those who have acquired them, they know what they have done to them. Some of the countries, Uganda do some analysis, since Bloomberg is international, so there are no plans here, sir. How much paid to Congo? The total award is $325 million to be settled over 5 years. We have so far paid $130 million for 2 years, and the balance is scheduled for payment in the due course to be paid. For Uganda, we pay obligations as they follow due. The World Bank freeze on new projects. We have moved very steadily with the need to address those measures the World Bank wanted us to put in place to ensure that the projects funded by the bank are going to be implemented in a manner which is non-discriminatory and also inclusive. We are moving quite well with the bank, and you can speak to the bank as well. They will tell you the same. Foreseen shortfall, which one? The one of revenue? Oh, that which, by the end of the financial year, how much are we likely to have missed? I don't want to speak about things which are not in control. My main intent is to ensure that we hit the revenue target the way we have hit the revenue targets for the last 2 years. I don't entertain shortfalls, and really this is the message I would want all stakeholders, Uganda Revenue Authority and the non-tax revenue collectors. We must get the revenue to finance the budget. These shortfalls could have happened in the first half. Second half, we need to recover and get that money collected. I don't want even to see those projections, so-called projections for shortfall. How can you project shortfall? Your job is to collect money. You should collect it and ensure that you fill those gaps where you are not getting the money. I think those were the questions. Oh, Martin Ruther. Martin, how much paid on interest and public debt? Martin, I'm going to cover you in my paper, the comprehensive paper. Because if you really, Martin is asking me about money we spend on interest. This money is public information. It is there on the website. It is there in the budget. But I'm going to break it down so that we communicate effectively. And Martin, thank you for reminding me that we need to do that. We are going to provide you with the full information. Thank you very much. Do we still have questions?
Only 2 questions for Uganda now. 2.
They are the same questions.
And they must be really not
Yes, next week or in okay.
Okay. Abasawo abo aba intern President yaddamu n'awandiika ebbaluwa n'agamba bwe ziba nga tulinawo miliyoni emu buli omu tugijjeko omusolo babeere nga bagifuna mu bujjuvu babeere n'eyo okutuuka embeera y'ebyenfuna lw'eneetereera era basaana balindeko. Nze kye mbasaba nti ekyokwekalakaasa tebakirowoozaako tujja kubanga eyo mudda nga tugenze twongera ebyenfuna bye tulwanagana nabyo okulongooka then tujja kuddamu tutunule naye kati tewaliwo ssente za kubongera kyekimu n'abalala bonna abategeka okwekalakaasa tetulina ssente empya zikwatagana na kwongeza misaala. Ssente eziriwo kati mu bajeti gye twawadde Parliament zeezo zokka eziriwo kujjako nga bannayuganda baagala nti gavumenti yaabwe yeewole ssente okusasula emisaala kye tutajja kukola era ekyo tetukikola wano mu Uganda.
Waliwo okusongwa okuli wakati wa URA n'abasuubuzi abayingiza ku ebyamaguzi ensonga y'okusasula Mombasa. Abasuubuzi bagamba nti ekikositi nnyo kibaleetera kizoba ekyokufiirwa. Ate URA tugibuze tugamba nti directives ziva Ministry of Finance. Enteekateeka eyinza okubaawo okulaba nga tugonjoola okusoomuka okuli wakati wa URA n'abasuubuzi mu nsonga y'emisolo naddala ey'okuliyalingira ebintu by'e Mombasa.
Tujja kutuula nabo abasuubuzi abo ne URA tubatabaganye bombi bategeere naddala abasuubuzi bategeere lwaki emisolo katugisasulira ku port of entry gye bayita port of entry mu East Africa si beeboka mu nsi endala zonna naye tujja kutuula nabo tulabe wabanga waliwo obuzibu mu ntegeeragana n'enkola ya business tugigonjoole naye nga ye policy gye twagala okukola. Tujja kutuula nabo director wange wa economic affairs ajja kuyita meeting okusooka ey'abasuubuzi ne URA batuule batubuulire ekivaamu kye tujja okugenderako. In English tuli mu Luganda. Oluganda luweddeyo? Oluganda yaluwo Oluganda? Okay.
Ensonga y'ebbanja twasaba tutangaza okuba bannayuganda balikukeera
Okay. Bannange bannayuganda ekikwatagana n'ebbanja lyaffe ery'eggwanga okusookera ddala Uganda y'ensi ku ezo ezikyalina ebbanja ettono ennyo okusinziira ku byobugagga byabwe. Singa barankinga ensi zonna mu Africa tuli mu nsi ezo entono kati ezisobola okusasula obulungi amabanja ge zirina nga terina nnyo buzibu bw'amaanyi. So saagala naddala bannabyabufuzi batandike naddala ebyenfuna byaffe okubumikisinga n'ebyobufuzi. Omanye ebyenfuna tebiriiko byabufuzi ki. Njagala tudiscussinga ebintu bino nga tukolezesa information eriwo nti ebbanja lyaffe ekisookera ddala tusobola bulungi okulisasula, tulina ssente ezirisasula. Ekyokubiri twalyewola okukola ebintu eby'omugaso. Ngenda kubawa olupapula mu ggwanga muno olulambika obulungi ssente ze twewoze emyaka egiyise meka tuzeewoze kuvaawa era zikoze biki ne bye zikoze bituwa magoba ki. Kubanga waliwo abantu okubeera nti abamu ali ku luguudo lwennyini olwakolebwa mu kwewola kakati ne luteekawo ne lutumbula ebyenfuna by'eggwanga abeera avuga nga bwagamba kyokka bannange gavumenti eno yeewoze nnyo ate ne byeyewoze tetubirabako. Oluguudo olwo kwovugira kwekwo. Omulala akati waliwo zino essimu eza internet kwe tudiscassingira ebbanja, naye ng'ate ekimu ku ebyo bye tukoze okuva mu bbanja eryo kwe kubeera nituteekawo internet ennungi, tuteekawo amasannyalaze, amazzi. Ebitundu bya Uganda kaakati ebisinga obungi, ebitundu kumpi 80 ku buli 100 birina amazzi amayonjo. Emyaka egyo egyayita edda bannayuganda ffenna tuli bannayuganda tumanyi gye tuvudde. Amazzi twavuganyanga na bisolo, osooka kugobawo kisolo n'ojjawo agago. Kaakati amazzi mayonjo, abantu tebakyalwala ndwadde z'amazzi. Security tukoze kwamba ebintu bingi. Security eyo tetugyewolera, tukozesa sente za URA ze collectinga. Naye waliyo ebintu ebyo byenjagala mbalage nti ebyobulimi tubitumbudde bwe tuti nga tukozesa project eno gye twewola okuva mu World Bank mu mwaka gwa 97 nti amazzi tukoze bwe tuti ge twewolera sente bwe ziti, enguudo bwe ziti. So tujja kulambika bulungi ebintu ki ebikoleddwa okuva mu ezo sente ze twewoze. Naye ebbanja nga njala okukakasa bannayuganda nti tulimanyi bulungi era tulikwata bulungi okulaba nti terisajjuka. Bwe tuba twewoze tusobola okulisasula. Ekisookera ddala enguudo z'omu Kampala n'emirirwano tuli mu kuzikolako, era gye bujjawo mu maaso tugenda kwongeramu ku speed n'amaanyi nti okuva ku ezo sente za gavumenti zenze nnambika zetuwa KCCA okukola ku nguudo zino, ate era waliwo sente gavumenti zeyeewola okuva mu kitongole kya Africa, banka ya Africa gye tuyita ADB, African Development Bank, kumpi akasiriivu kalamba n'okusoba okuddaabiriza enguudo mu kibuga. Era enguudo ezisinga zimwasanjala naddala mu kibuga abazisulako balaba nti batandika okuzikolako, nga luli oluguudo olukwata ku Salama lwe Salama Road, wano oluguudo lwa Port Bell n'enguudo endala nyingi mu kibuga. Ate era twafunyeeyo ne $1 million za America zisukka mu 600 enguudo zokka n'emyala egitwala amazzi naki okulaba nti tubbulula ekibuga. Ekikwatagana ne LC 1, sente z'okulonda LC 1 tetuzirina kati mu budde buno. Tujja kubeera nga tukikolako mudda nga tufunye sente ezo, katusooke tukole ebyetaagisa LCs ne elections endala okubeerawo. Okugeza obululu obugenda okuddako bwetaaga bannayuganda okubabala, bannayuganda okubajjako information yebakwatako gye bayita biodata o biometrics, okulaba nti munnayuganda y'oyo agenza okulonda y'oyo, babawe ID. So ebyo bibadde nga bikyatutte sente, aye tetwagala kwewola nti tugende twewole sente tuteekewo okulonda ku LC1. Ekyo si kirungi. Katulindeko katono nga abakulembeze be batugayidinga. Byabakulembeze be LC sibimanyi bulungi, naye Minister wa Local Government ajja kubanga atubuulira nteekateeka ki gye balina okubeera nti LC zino zibeerawo okutuuka ekyo ekiseera lwe zinaziba obujja. Byebyo. Mwebale nnyo.
Thank you very much, PSST, for your time. You dedicated a lot of time to speak with your friends, and I think it was very necessary.
Thank you.
Our partners, thank you very much. I'm aware that Sesbag and God have a pre-budget dialogue this Thursday at Golf Course Hotel. from noon to 3 p.m. we can also. Thank you very much. The media advertisement. Please come. I wish you a good afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Hey, Chief, have you taken a Happy New Year?
Yes, sir. Very done. Hey, steering the boat. Keeping it afloat. It's not easy.